Real property valuation. While you may not perform a formal appraisal without a proper appraiser's license, real estate licensees need to have a general knowledge of how property may be valued. In this review, we'll look at various principles that impact value and examine the formal steps in the appraisal process. We'll also review key points about the 3 appraisal approaches and conclude with a look at a comparative market analysis. But first, let's start with a brief discussion of the forces at work in the real estate market, including the underlying causes for shifts in supply and demand, and the creation of buyers' markets and sellers' markets. Factors that affect the real estate market can be remembered with the acronym PEGS: physical, economic, governmental, and social. Physical factors that influence real estate markets include location, immobility, meaning land cannot be moved, uniqueness, meaning land cannot be duplicated and no 2 parcels are the same, and scarcity, meaning more land cannot economic factors that influence real estate markets include inflation, the cost of money, the economic base, and supply and demand. Inflation is an increase in the cost of goods or services. The cost of money is the interest rate people or businesses must pay to use another's money. Inflation can push the interest rate higher or lower, which is a primary factor in determining the demand for real estate. A healthy economic base is critical to maintaining home values and is a primary factor in determining the supply of real estate. The law of supply and demand says that for all products, goods, and services, when supply exceeds demand, prices will fall. And when demand exceeds supply, prices will rise. There is an inherent difficulty in adjusting supply and demand in the real estate market because an immobile, unique, and scarce product is being sold instead of a commodity and there's a lag time before builders can respond to a shortage or oversupply of houses in an area. This can create buyers' markets and sellers' markets. In a buyer's market, there are many homes available for sale, but few buyers, which drives prices down. In a seller's market, a large number of buyers are looking for houses in an area of limited availability, which drives prices up. Governmental factors that influence real estate markets on state and local levels include revenue-generating laws or taxation. The Federal Reserve also uses various tools to influence interest rates, although the Fed does not set interest rates for mortgage loans. Social factors that influence real estate include demographics, population growth, population age, family size, and population migration. Land values can benefit from an influx of people for jobs or other reasons or be devastated by a mass departure of people. Value is a reflection of the goods or services offered in the marketplace in exchange for something. Maximizing value requires 4 value characteristics: demand, utility, scarcity, and transferability, which you can remember as dust. Buyers must want the home, demand, feel it's able to satisfy their needs, utility, perceive a limited supply, scarcity, and be free to transfer the home later, transferability. Market value is the theoretical price real estate is most likely to bring in a typical transaction. A property's price is the amount someone paid for it. Price is a fact. In theory, the market value and price should be similar, but that is not always the case. Appraisers rely on several property-specific factors when considering value. Highest and best use is the most profitable, legal, financially feasible, and physically possible use of land. Location or situs is the exact position of the land. Progression occurs when the worst homes Value is positively affected by other nearby homes. Regression occurs when the best homes. Value is negatively affected by other nearby homes. Substitution says that an informed buyer won't pay more for a home or feature than a comparable substitute. Conformity means that a home achieves maximum value when surrounded by similar homes. Contribution means that an item is worth only what it contributes in value to real estate. Anticipation relates to the expectation that property value may be affected by some future benefit or event. The law of diminishing returns says that, beyond a certain point, the added value of an item is less than its actual cost. The value of real property can be affected by assemblage, which is combining two or more parcels of land into one larger parcel. Plottage occurs when assemblage increases value. Subdividing land can also increase its value. An appraisal is the process of developing an opinion of value. An appraisal is merely an opinion of value, not a guarantee or determination. The appraisal is valid only as of the effective date of the appraisal. It does not predict future value. An appraiser is a person who is expected to perform valuation services competently, independently, impartially, and objectively. A state-licensed or certified appraiser is generally required for any federally regulated financing. Only appraisers who have the advanced state certification may perform appraisals for FHA-insured loans. They must also be on the FHA-approved list. Appraisal fees are generally set before the work begins based on the complexity of the assignment. It is never acceptable to base a fee on the appraiser's final opinion of value. While some appraisers are salaried employees of large companies or government agencies, most appraisers, known as fee appraisers, work independently for a variety of clients and charge a fee for each assignment. The Appraisal Foundation was formed as a nonprofit corporation with an appraisal standards board to develop, interpret, amend, and publish the uniform standards of professional appraisal practice, or USPAPE. USPAPE is recognized throughout the U.S. as the accepted standard of appraisal practice. The formal steps in the appraisal process are as follows: 1. Define the problem. 2. Define the scope of work. 3. Collect and analyze the applicable data. 4. Estimate the value of the property, referred to as the subject property, by applying the approaches to value. 5. Reconcile estimates of value and determine a final opinion of value. And 6. Report the defined value. Opinions for a property can be developed using the sales comparison approach, the cost approach, or the income approach. The appraiser's judgment and experience decide which approach is given the most weight. The sales comparison approach, also called the market data approach, is an appraisal method in which an appraiser develops an opinion of value by analyzing comparable sold properties. The sales comparison approach is considered the most useful and accurate of the three appraisal methods if adequate comps are available, because it's rooted in actual market activity. This approach considers past sales that have closed. Properties currently for sale are not used as comparables since their final selling price hasn't been determined. Ideally, comparables should be recent sales, usually within 6 months before the appraisal date. The comps should also be physically similar to the subject and in a similar market. For most appraisals for mortgage finance transactions, at least 3 comparable sales are analyzed, but an appraiser should use as many comps as necessary to arrive at an appropriate estimate of value. Since it may be difficult to find properties that are the same as the subject property in all respects, The sales comparison approach allows for adjustments. Adjusting properties is the process of making chosen comparables come as close as possible in features to the subject so that meaningful value comparisons can be made. Remember these rules for adjusting comps. 1. The subject property is never adjusted. 2. If the comparable is inferior to the subject, the appraiser adds to the comparable's sales price to make the properties equal. 3. If the comparable is superior to the subject property, the appraiser subtracts from the comparable's sales price to make them equal. Adjustments are made only for significant features or conditions of the property as of the day the comparable sold. Lender guidelines may impose limits on the number of adjustments. The cost approach develops an opinion of value for a property by calculating the acquisition cost of the land, cost of site improvements, and the cost to build the structure on the land. Improvements are depreciated, and the site value is added to arrive at a final opinion of value. For the property, site value is most often determined using the sales comparison approach. The cost approach is most useful for newly constructed buildings and special purpose properties that have few or no comparables and do not produce income. When estimating costs, it's important to know whether the estimate is for replacing or reproducing the building. Replacement of a structure is building the functional equivalent of the original building. Reproduction of a structure is building a replica of the original building. Cost manuals may be used to provide current costs of construction for different types of buildings. The cost factor is multiplied by the structure's square footage to estimate the cost to build. Depreciation is a loss in value for any reason. Factors contributing to depreciation can be classified as curable or incurable. If the repair costs less than the estimated gain, it is said to be curable. If the repair costs more than the estimated gain, it is said to be incurable. Physical deterioration refers to actual wear and tear due to age, the elements, unrepaired damage, or other forces. It is usually curable. Functional obsolescence describes a building that is less desirable because of something inherent in the structure itself, such as a house with an outdated style, inadequate fixtures, or impractical floor plan. It may be curable or incurable. External obsolescence, also known as economic obsolescence, occurs when something outside the control of the property owner makes the property less desirable. External obsolescence is always considered incurable since the property owner cannot remedy it. The income approach, sometimes called the capitalization approach, is used to appraise income producing, or potentially income producing, properties. It estimates the value of real property by analyzing the amount of revenue the property currently generates or could generate. There are two methods, the gross rent multiplier and direct capitalization. The gross rent multiplier, or GRM, expresses a relationship between an anticipated income stream, either monthly or annual gross rent, and value. Once this factor is estimated, it can be used to estimate the value of other properties. The GRM is most commonly used for 1 to 4 unit residential income properties. The direct capitalization calculation, sometimes called the Irv formula, relies on 3 variables: income, rate, and value. Income is the amount of money a property earns from all sources. The capitalization rate method uses net operating income, or NOI, which is the income after vacancies and operating expenses are deducted. Remember that depreciation and debt service are not considered operating expenses. The R in the Irv formula refers to the capitalization rate, which represents the return on the purchase price of the property. An appraiser evaluates comparable properties in the marketplace to determine the appropriate cap rate to use, and the IRV equation for estimating value. Value is what someone is willing to pay for a property at a given moment in time. It is determined by dividing the income by the rate. Although the rate and acceptable risk vary among investors, the rate compares the relative investment risk. Generally speaking, the higher the cap rate, the greater the risk. While a real estate licensee cannot perform an appraisal, they still have an important role to play related to valuation. One of the first things a seller wants to know is how much the licensee thinks the property should list for. A licensee can develop a comparative market analysis, or CMA, for a seller to provide a range of probable selling prices. Sometimes the lender may ask a real estate licensee to provide a similar analysis called the broker price opinion, or BPO. This may be needed, for example, when a property that is owned by the bank through foreclosure will be sold at auction. Regardless of the purpose, it's important to remember that, although a CMA and a BPO are similar to an appraisal, they are never equal to an appraisal. Therefore, neither can be used to determine property value for a federally regulated loan. The typical comparative market analysis is a simplified version of the sales comparison approach to appraisal. Like an appraisal, a CMA compares features of the subject property to those of several comparable properties, making adjustments for differences. However, a CMA considers all similar properties that have entered the market, active, sold, expired, and withdrawn. A comparative market analysis is primarily concerned with the observable differences between houses that would draw a buyer to one house over another. That concludes this review of valuation principles and practices. Remember that an appraisal is simply an estimate of value that is supported by objective data. An appraiser must be state licensed or certified to perform an appraisal for a federally regulated mortgage loan. For an FHA loan, the appraiser must be state certified and on the FHA's list of approved